Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Study with Cree, where we break down the theories that build the mind. In this series, we're exploring the foundations of counseling and psychology, one theory at a time. Today, we start where it all began with the psychoanalytic approach. Here we have pictured our psychoanalytic theorists Sigmund Freud, Carl Jung, Alfred Adler, and also Erik Erikson. The psychoanalytic approach was the foundation of modern counseling theory, a lens that dives deep into the unconscious mind, our childhood experiences, and the hidden motives that drive human behavior. It reminds us that what is buried still shapes who we become. Now is a good time to get a pen and a piece of paper so that you're able to take notes, because we will be discussing each psychoanalytic theorist separately. Sigmund Freud is known as the father of psychoanalysis. He believed that our personalities develop through a series of psychosexual stages. Each stage represents a conflict between our biological drives and social expectations. When those conflicts aren't resolved, they can linger into adulthood. Key ideas of this is unconscious motives, defense mechanisms, dream analysis, and the structure of personality such as which are the id, the ego, and the superego. Negative consequences include failing to successfully navigate Freud's stages can lead to fixations like being stuck in the anal stage, resulting in an anal retentive personality marked by perfectionism or rigidity. Reflection to remember is Freud reminds us that healing begins with awareness, and what we deny still defines us until we face it. Now we have Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology. Jung was a student of Freud who branched off to develop his own approach after some disagreements, one that valued spirituality and the collective unconscious. He introduced archetypes such as universal symbols like the hero, the shadow, and the wise old man that appear across cultures and stories to this day. Key ideas to take away from Jung is the collective unconscious, archetypes, introversion versus extroversion, and individuation, the journey to integrate all parts of the self. Negative consequences include ignoring our shadow self can lead to projection, blaming others for traits we refuse to acknowledge within ourselves. Reflection would be Jung taught us that healing means wholeness, and to become whole, we must embrace every part of who we are, even the bad parts. Alfred Adler, the father of individual psychology. Adler believes that humans are driven not by sexual instincts like Freud, but by a desire to overcome feelings of inferiority. He saw people as creative and goal-oriented, striving for significance and belonging within their social worlds. Key ideas are inferiority complex, striving for superiority, social interest, and birth order theory. Negative consequences include when a person fails to develop a social interest and remains isolated in their inferiority, they may become self-centered or domineering to mask their insecurity. A reflection to keep in mind would be Adler believed the healthiest people are those who feel they belong, because connection is what heals inferiority. And last but not least, we have Erik Erikson, he is a psychosocial developmental theorist. Erikson expanded Freud's ideas to include social and cultural influences across the entire lifespan. He outlined 8 psychosocial stages, each featuring central conflict like trust versus mistrust or identity versus role confusion. Key ideas to keep in mind is psychosocial stages, ego identity, and lifespan development. Negative consequences include failing to resolve a stage can cause lifelong struggles. For instance, unresolved trust issues can create attachment problems in adulthood. A reflection would be Erikson reminds us that growth doesn't end with childhood. Every season of life asks us to grow again. And Freud is the only theorist that proposed a lifespan that went from birth to death, which I found that interesting, so I wanted to share that fact with you guys as well. This is the heart of the psychoanalytic approach, understanding the past so that we can free the present. Now we're going to move on to the behavioral theorist, and I apologize if I butcher some of these names, but here we have pictured Ivan Pavlov, John B. Watson, B.F. Skinner, Albert Bandura, and also Edward Thorndike. The behavioral approach shifted psychology from the mind's mysteries to what we can see and measure, which is behavior. Instead of exploring unconscious drives, behaviors ask, what can we observe, shape, and reinforce? Starting with John B. Watson, he's known for classical conditioning. Watson believed that behavior is learned from the environment through conditioning. He rejected the idea of the unconscious and focused on stimulus-response learning, where a neutral stimulus becomes associated with a response through repetition. Key ideas to remember is observable behavior, conditioning, and also environment over heredity. Negative consequences to keep in mind are if a person is conditioned with fear or punishment, they may develop learned helplessness, reacting with anxiety or avoidance, even when danger is no longer present. Our reflection would be behavior is shaped by what we repeat and what we reward. B.F. Skinner is known for operant conditioning. Skinner expanded on Watson by introducing the concept of reinforcement, the idea that behavior increases when rewarded and decreases when punished. He believed behavior could be shaped through schedules of reinforcement. Key ideas are positive and negative reinforcement, punishment, behavior shaping, operant chamber, which is also known as the Skinner box. Negative consequences are over-reliance on external rewards can undermine intrinsic motivation. People might only act for rewards, not because it's right or meaningful. A reflection would be what we reinforce, we repeat, both in behavior and in thought. And now we have Albert Bandura. He is known for the social learning theory. Bandura bridged behaviorism and cognition, showing that people can learn simply by watching others. He emphasized modeling and observational learning, introducing the idea of self-efficacy. Our belief, I'm sure you get the picture. Our belief in our ability to succeed. Key ideas would include modeling, observing, learning, self-efficacy, reciprocal determinism. Negative consequences would be when individuals observe negative behaviors like aggression or helplessness without corrective models, they may imitate destructive patterns and internalize powerlessness. A reflection would be, we learn by watching others, but growth begins when we choose what to imitate. The behavior approach reminds us that behavior can be unlearned, reshaped, and rewritten because change is a skill, not a mystery. Listed here, we have cognitive theorists. We have Jean Piaget, Lev Vygotsky, Lawrence Kohlberg, Carol Gilligan, William G. Perry, James Fowler, Daniel Levinson, and also Robert Keegan. The cognitive approach turns psychology inward again, focusing not on what we do, but how we think. It explores how we interpret, reason, and make sense of our experiences. Cognitive theorists believe our thoughts shape our emotions, which then shapes our behavior. And first we have Jean Piaget, and he is known for cognitive development theory. Piaget explored how children construct knowledge through active interaction with their environment. He identified 4 stages of cognitive development, which is the first stage, sensory motor, 0 to 2 years, learning through senses and movement. The second stage is pre-operational, from 2 to 7 years old, and is symbolic thinking and egocentrism. The third stage is concrete operational, from 7 to 11 years old, and that includes logical reasoning about concrete events. And the last stage is formal operational, that's 12 plus years old, and it includes abstract hypothetical thinking. Key ideas to think about when thinking about Piaget cognitive development theory is assimilation and accommodation, schemas, and equilibrium. Negative consequences include if a child's experiences don't challenge their thinking, they may fail to advance cognitively, remaining stuck in concrete thought patterns into adolescence or adulthood. A reflection includes Piaget showed us that minds grow in steps, and learning means adapting what we believe. Moving on to Lev Vygotsky, he is known for socio-cultural theory. Vygotsky emphasized the role of social interaction in cognitive growth. He believed learning happens first between people, then within the individual. His concept of the zone of proximal development, ZPD, ZPD, describes the gap between what we can do alone and what we can do with help, highlighting the importance of guidance and collaborations. Key ideas include zone of proximal development, scaffolding, and cultural influence. Negative consequences would be without social engagement or guidance, cognitive growth can stagnate, leaving individuals underdeveloped in problem solving and independence. A reflection would be learning begins in connection. We grow through relationships before we grow through reflection. And now we're moving on to Lawrence Kohlberg, who is known for the moral development theory. This was actually one of my favorite theories. Kohlberg expanded Piaget's work to explain how moral reasoning evolves through 3 levels. We have the pre-conventional phase, which is the behavior driven by consequences, the conventional phase, which is guided by social rules and approval, and the post-conventional phase, based on internalized moral principles. Key ideas to remember is moral reasoning, justice-based ethics. Negative consequences include when moral reasoning is fixed at lower levels, individuals may obey rules blindly or act solely for approval, lacking moral independence. A reflection would be true morality begins when we do what's right, even when no one is watching. Now we have Carol Gilligan, Ethics of Care. Gilligan challenged Kohlberg's justice-based model, arguing that women's moral reasoning often centers around care, empathy, and relationships rather than rules or justice. Key ideas to remember is ethics of care and relational morality. Negative consequences would be when empathy is undervalued, moral judgment becomes detached, rules outweigh relationships. A reflection includes empathy is not a weakness, it's wisdom guided by the heart. And we have William Perry, who's known as a cognitive and ethical development theorist. Perry focused on college students' intellectual and ethical growth. He described a journey from dualistic thinking, right or wrong, towards relativism and ultimately commitment to values. Key ideas would be dualism, relativism, commitment, and intellectual maturity. Negative consequences would include remaining stuck in dualistic thinking, limits flexibility, creating rigidity in beliefs, and intolerance for diverse perspectives. A reflection includes wisdom grows when we accept that the truth can be complex. Now we have James Fowler, which is known for the faith development theory. Fowler explored how faith, not just religious faith, but our meaning-making system develops through life. His 6 stages range from intuitive faith in childhood to universalizing faith in adulthood. Key ideas include meaning-making, spiritual development. Negative consequences include when faith is never questioned, it can stay immature, built on imitation rather than conviction. A reflection would be the ability to systematically weigh ambiguous evidence and take committed action in the face of uncertainty is one of the most important skills to modern life. Here we have the humanistic theorists such as Abraham Maslow, Carl Rogers, and Alfred Adler. And throughout this presentation, you will note that there will be some overlap between the different theorists. So, if the psychoanalytic and behavioral approaches focus on what's wrong, the humanistic approach focuses on what's right, which is our growth, our choices, and our potential to become fully alive. Humanistic theorists believe that people are not defined by their problems, but by their ability to heal, learn, and grow. Starting with Abraham Maslow, he is popular for the hierarchy of needs. Maslow believed that human motivation follows a hierarchy, a pyramid of needs that begin with the basics and rises towards self-actualization. We must first satisfy physiological and safety needs before reaching love, esteem, and ultimately the desire for purpose and fulfillment. Key ideas to remember are hierarchy of needs, self-actualization, and peak experiences. Negative consequences to note are when lower needs like safety or belongings are unmet, people may feel stuck in survival mode, unable to reach their potential or find meaning beyond their struggles. A reflection would be Maslow reminded us that before people can grow, they must feel safe. And once safe, they are capable of extraordinary growth. Moving on to Carl Rogers, person-centered therapy. Rogers transformed the counseling relationship by introducing unconditional positive regard, the belief that every person deserves acceptance, empathy, and authenticity. He viewed the counselor not as the expert, but as a guide who helped clients discover their own truth. Key ideas to note are unconditional positive regard, empathy, congruence, authenticity, and actualizing tendency. Negative consequences would be when individuals grow up in conditional environments where love and approval depended on performance, they develop incongruence, a split between who they are and who they think they must be. A reflection include Rogers taught us that empathy heals, and when someone feels truly seen, change begins to naturally occur. Alfred Adler in the Humanistic Bridge. Though often associated with psychoanalysis, Adler's individual psychology is also deeply humanistic. He believed humans are social beings motivated by purpose, belongings, and contribution, not just instinct or drive. Adler saw life as a journey of striving for significance while balancing cooperation and courage. Key ideas to note are social interest, striving for significance, lifestyle patterns, and also courage to be imperfect, like my speaking. Negative consequences include when people lose their sense of belonging, they may compensate through superiority or withdrawal, creating disconnection and discouragement. A reflection to keep in mind is Adler believed that true strength comes from community, that healing begins when we stop competing and start connecting. The humanistic approach reminds us that healing isn't just about insight or behavior. It's about hope, empathy, and the courage to grow. We have cognitive behavioral therapy theorists. I hope that makes sense. We have Ellis, Beck, and Glasser. Sorry, I forgot to put the first names. Is Albert Ellis, Aaron Beck, and also William Glasser. If the cognitive approach taught us that thoughts shape our reality, then the cognitive behavioral approach shows us how to change those thoughts and with them our emotions and actions. These theorists believe that we can learn to recognize, challenge, and replace distorted thinking patterns with healthier ones. It's the perfect bridge between how we think and what we do. Starting with Albert Ellis, which is known for the Rational Emotive Behavioral Therapy, REBT. Ellis believed that it's not events that upsets us, it's our beliefs about the event. His ABC model explains this. A stands for activating event, B stands for belief about the event, and C stands for the consequence or the emotion or behavior behind the event that occurred. By identifying and disputing irrational beliefs, clients can choose healthier emotional responses. Key ideas to know are irrational beliefs, self-talk, the disputation of thoughts, and the ABC model that we had just discussed. Negative consequences include when irrational beliefs go unchallenged, like I must be perfect to be loved, they produce chronic guilt, chronic shame, and anxiety. Reflection includes Ellis taught us that our thoughts aren't facts, and freedom begins when we talk back to our beliefs. Moving on to Aaron Beck, which is he's a well-known one for cognitive therapy. Beck expanded the cognitive revolution by mapping specific thinking errors, known as cognitive distortions, that contribute to depression and anxiety. He encouraged clients to record their automatic thoughts and test them against reality, which I find fascinating. Key ideas include automatic thoughts, cognitive distortions, thought records, and collaborative empiricism. Negative consequences include when distorted thinking, like catastrophizing or overgeneralizing, is left unchecked, emotions become dysregulated, and hopelessness takes root. A reflection to keep in mind is Beck showed us that awareness is a form of therapy because once you see a distortion, you can change it. William Glasser, known for reality therapy and choice therapy. Glasser believed that we are motivated by 5 basic needs, which are love and belonging, power, freedom, fun, and survival, and that our chances determine whether those needs are met in healthy or unhealthy ways. Reality therapy focuses on personal responsibility and building effective relationships instead of blame. Key ideas include choice therapy, responsibility, quality world, WDEP model, which is known as the What Doing Evaluation Planning model. Negative consequences include when people avoid ownership of their choices, they remain stuck in victimhood, feeling powerless to change their circumstances or relationships. A reflection from Glasser includes, Glasser reminds us that change begins the moment we stop blaming and start choosing. How powerful. The cognitive behavioral approach teaches that our thoughts and actions are partners and we take responsibility for both. We create the possibility for real change and lifelong change. Now we're moving on to Gestalt existential therapy. And we do have Fritz Perls and Eric Berne listed here. However, I found a few other theories such as Yalom that I felt very important to add to this review. However, I really apologize about the fact that their names and pictures aren't listed here because it was kind of a last minute ad. But starting with Gestalt existential therapy approach, the Gestalt and existential approaches invite us to step into the present moment, to stop running from discomfort and start experiencing life fully. These theorists believe that healing happens through awareness, authenticity, and the courage to face existence as it is. Fritz Perls, known as Gestalt therapy, Perls believe that people must become aware of their thoughts, emotions, and bodily sensations to fully live in the present. Gestalt therapy focuses on the here and now, helping clients take responsibility for their experiences instead of blaming others. Key ideas to keep in mind is awareness, here and now focus, unfinished business, and contact and withdrawal. Negative consequences of this include when we avoid our emotions or disconnect from the present, we carry unfinished business, unresolved feelings that block growth and peace. Reflection includes Perls taught us that we can't heal what we refuse to feel. Awareness is the beginning of change. Eric Berne, also known for transactional analysis or TA, Berne viewed personality as made up of 3 ego states: the parent, the adult, and the child. He believed every interaction is a transaction between these states, and by recognizing which part of us is speaking, we can change patterns of communication and behavior. Key ideas include ego states, life scripts, transactions, and games people play. Negative consequences include when people remain trapped in unhealthy scripts or replay emotional games, they repeat self-defeating relationships without understanding why. A reflection includes Bernie showed us that awareness of our roles give us the power to rewrite our own story. How empowering is that? It's amazing. And not listed on here, we have Viktor Frankl for logotherapy. Frankl, a Holocaust survivor, believed that even in suffering, humans can find meaning. He found logotherapy, the therapy of meaning, emphasizing purpose as a central motivation in life. Key ideas to note are meaning-making, freedom of choice, and will to meaning. Will to meaning. Interesting. Key ideas include, my bad. Moving on. Negative consequences include when people lose their sense of purpose, they experience existential vacuum, a deep emptiness that can manifest as apathy or despair. A reflection includes Frankl reminds us that when we can't change our situation, we can still change our attitudes and find meaning in the struggle. We have Rollo May, existential psychology. May introduced existential ideas to American psychology, emphasizing anxiety as a natural part of being human. He saw anxiety not as pathology, but as a signal that we are confronting our potential for change and freedom. Key ideas include existential anxiety, courage to create, authenticity, and responsibility for existence. Negative consequences are when anxiety is avoided or suppressed, it can turn into despair, blocking growth and self-realization. A reflection is May showed us that courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to move forward despite it. And Irvin Yalom, existential psychotherapy theorist, Yalom identified 4 ultimate concerns of existence, which are death, freedom, isolation, and meaningless. He believed facing these realities directly, leading to personal transformation and deeper connection with others. Key ideas include ultimate concerns, here and now relationship, group therapy emphasis. Negative consequences are when we avoid existential truths, we live unconsciously, driven by fear instead of purpose. Yalom taught us that meaning is not found, it's created through honest connection with ourselves and others. The Gestalt and existential approaches remind us that awareness is freedom, and to live fully, we must learn to meet ourselves in the present moment. Now we have reached the family systems approach. So we have Moray Bowen, Salvador Minuchin, Jay Haley, Chloe Madanes, Virginia Satir, Nathan Ackerman, and also Monica McGoldrick. The family system approach views the family as a living organism, a network of relationships where every action affects the whole. To help one person change, we must understand how the entire system interacts. This approach focuses on boundaries, hierarchy, and power, then individual structures that shape family life. Moray Bowen, also known for Bohemian family therapy, Bowen views the family as an emotional unit, an intergenerational system that transmits patterns of anxiety, attachment, and behavior through generations. He believed that self-differentiation, the ability to stay connected while maintaining individuality, is key to emotional health. Key ideas are differentiation of self, triangulation, family projection process, and also multi-generational transmission, emotional cutoff. Negative consequences include when people lack differentiation, they absorb others' emotions, reacting instead of responding, and repeating family anxiety across generations. Bowen reminds us that healing isn't about cutting away the family, it's about learning to stay connected without losing yourself. And we're moving on to Salvador Minuchin, known for structural family therapy. Minuchin saw families as systems organized by subsystems such as the parents, the children, and siblings. Healthy families have clear but flexible boundaries. They focus on restructuring those boundaries and hierarchies to create balance and stability. Key ideas to know are the family structure, subsystems, boundaries, hierarchy, and enmeshment versus disengagement. Negative consequences include rigid or diffuse boundaries lead to dysfunction. Enmeshed families lose independence, while disengaged families lose connection. Minuchin showed that families heal when love has structure, closeness with room to breathe. Jay Haley, also known for strategic family therapy, Haley focused on solving problems by changing interaction patterns. He emphasized power, hierarchy, and communication within the family, believing that clear leadership is essential for healthy relationships. Key ideas include strategic interventions, directives, power, and hierarchy, problem solving, and focus. Negative consequences include when hierarchies blur and power struggles persist, family members get trapped in cycles of control, rebellion, or avoidance. Haley taught that effective change often begins with a simple, intentional act that interrupts the pattern. Now we're moving on to Chloe Madane's strategic and humanistic integration is what she's known for. Madane combined strategic interventions with compassion. She viewed family symptoms as expressions of love or attempts to protect others, even when those efforts cause harm. Her work emphasized healing emotional pain through love, respect, and balanced power. Key ideas to remember are love and power balance, symptoms of communication, and also hierarchy within a relationship. Negative consequences include when love is used as control, family members lose authenticity, choosing peace over truth. Madane's remind us that love must be freeing, not controlling. Real care empowers. With Virginia Satir, she's known for experiential family therapy. Satir believed that healthy families are built on open communication, self-worth, and congruence, meaning alignment between what we think, what we feel, and say. She often used family sculpting to help members visualize emotional distance and connection. Key ideas include congruence, communication styles, family sculpting, and self-esteem. Negative consequences are when communication becomes defensive or blaming, self-worth deteriorates, and family trust breaks down. Satir showed that honest communication is a bridge between hurt and healing. Okay, now we have Nathan Ackerman. The emotional core of the family is what he's known for. Ackerman was one of the first to bring psychoanalytic ideas into the family setting. He saw conflict as natural, but believed families heal through emotional honesty and understanding, not avoidance. Key ideas include emotional roles, intergenerational tension, and shared responsibility. Negative consequences are suppressing family conflicts does not create peace. It creates distance and resentment beneath the surface. Ackerman believed that families don't break from conflict, they break from silence. And last but not least, we have Monica McGoldrick, who is known for multi-generational and cultural perspectives. McGoldrick expanded family systems therapy to include cultural, gender, and generational dimensions. Her genogram approach helped families trace patterns, roles, and legacies that shape identity across time. Key ideas include genograms, cultural context, gender roles, and life cycle transitions. Negative consequences are ignoring cultural or generational patterns leave families vulnerable to repeating cycles of pain, misunderstanding, or exclusion. McGoldrick taught that McGoldrick taught that healing the present begins when understanding the past. When we understand the past, the stories our families tell us and the ones that they silence. Now we have reached a developmental approach. And these are some of the theorists well known in the developmental world. They are G. Stanley Hall, Erik Erikson, once again, and also Jean Piaget. The developmental approach reminds us that life is a process, a series of stages and transitions that shape who we become. These theories studied how we grow physically, emotionally, socially, and morally across the lifespan. They believe that development is not just about age, it's about adaptation, meaning, and maturity. G. Stanley Hall, the founder of developmental psychology, Hall was one of the first psychologists to study human growth scientifically. He coined the term adolescence and described it as a time of storm and stress, a necessary conflict between dependence and independence. Key ideas to note is adolescence is a unique stage, storm is stress, and lifespan psychology. Negative consequences are when adolescents lack guidance during this transition, they may struggle with identity confusion and emotional instability that carries into adulthood. Hall helped us understand that chaos is part of growth. Every transformation begins with tension. And we're moving on to Jean Piaget. We're just revisiting him, and we're going to talk about the cognitive development theory. Piaget's developmental stages remind us that learning and thinking evolve through experience. He viewed growth as an active process, which stage preparation, each stage preparing the mind for more complex ways of reasoning. Key ideas include schema development, assimilation, and accommodation, and also equilibrium. Negative consequences of this include if cognitive challenges are limited, individuals may remain stuck in simplistic or egocentric thinking, unable to see beyond their own perspective. Piaget showed us that knowledge grows through curiosity. The mind matures by exploring the unknown. And once again, we have Erik Erikson, known for his psychosocial development theory. Erikson extended Freud's psychosexual model into 8 stages of psychosocial growth, each defined by a central conflict that builds a foundation for the next. He emphasized that identity continued to evolve throughout life, not just in childhood. Key ideas to note are the 8 psychosocial stages, identity formation, and lifespan development. Negative consequences are when a stage is left unresolved, like autonomy versus shame or intimacy versus isolation. Individuals may carry insecurity or disconnection into future relationships. Erikson taught us that growth never stops. Each stage of life asks us to rediscover who we are. If you all have gotten to this point, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my presentation today. I really hope that you learned something from it. And if you have any questions, feel free to post the questions down in the chat box, and I will try my best to get to them as soon as I can. Also, yes, I hope that this puts you one step closer to passing your exam, whether it's the NCE or the CPCE, whatever exam you're taking. And just remember that we're in this together. We're gonna stay motivated. We're gonna stay connected, and we're gonna be the best future counselors and therapists that we possibly can be. I hope that you enjoy the rest of your day. Listen to this a few more times throughout the week. Just when you're doing laundry or when you're in traffic going to work, just put one earbud in and listen to develop more active recall with the different theories that we posted or that we talked about today. Well, once again, thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in my next video. Bye.